Hey guys, tonight we begin where sandals slap the dust and the air smells like sweat, bronze, and an unspoken promise to die for a flag. You're standing shoulder to shoulder with a group of sunburnt, very shirtless warriors who are all built like marble statues. The cliffs of Thermopylae rise behind you, and in front of you is an army so vast, the earth seems to tremble with each step they take. You glance left and right, yep, everyone's smiling. Probably because they already accepted they're not making it out alive. You're still trying to remember how to hold the spear correctly. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And hey, drop your location and local time in the comments, I always love seeing where and when you're tuning in from. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. The year is 480 BCE. You're one of the 300 Spartans led by King Leonidas, standing in a narrow pass meant to funnel the massive Persian army into a manageable trickle. It's a textbook choke point, if your textbook was written in blood and had abs on the cover. The Persian king Xerxes has brought anywhere from 100,000 to 300,000 troops, depending on which ancient exaggerator you believe. Historians still argue whether the Persian numbers were truly that high or if Herodotus just liked round, terrifying figures. But here's the catch, you're not alone. Alongside the Spartans are about 7,000 other Greeks, Thespians, Thebans, and more, though only the Spartans get action figures later. The first few days are, oddly, successful. You hold the pass. You slash, stab, and laugh darkly as wave after wave crashes against your shield wall. You're tired, but you're also kind of loving it, like the world's most extreme CrossFit session. Then, everything changes. A local Greek, Ephialtes, sells you out and reveals a mountain path to the Persians. Traitor. You might remember him from the movie 300, where he kind of looks like he wandered in from a different horror film. Now you're surrounded. Leonidas gives the order, those who wish to leave, may. But not you. No, you're one of the ones who stays. Part loyalty, part stubbornness, and let's be honest, part inability to face your Spartan mom if you ran away. The final day is a blur. The sun rises red, and you wonder if that's some kind of omen or just battlefield pollution. You lose count of how many Persians you've fought off. Your muscles burn, and your vision blurs, but your shield is still locked tight with your comrades. At one point, your spear breaks, so you grab a sword. When that's lost, you punch with a shield rim, then rocks, then fists. It's not pretty, but neither are you by then. And here's your fringe fact for the night, ancient Spartans reportedly used red cloaks in battle not just to look cool, but to mask the blood. Which is metal. And also incredibly impractical if you're doing laundry. At last, Persian archers are ordered to blot out the sun. You joke that at least you'll fight in the shade. Classic Spartan banter. Then come the arrows. A black storm. You raise your shield and brace. You don't survive, but you knew that was coming. Your body is later buried beneath a lion monument, though your name, unless you're Leonidas, gets lost in time. Still, the battle's impact is enormous. It delays the Persian advance and lights a fire in Greek unity. Thermopylae becomes legend, proof that courage can echo longer than life. The irony? The Persians win the battle, but not the war. Greece eventually kicks them out, and for centuries afterward, soldiers across the world will whisper, Thermopylae, like it's both a prayer and a dare. As your spirit drifts upward, or sideways, depending on your theology, you overhear two Persians debating. Did they really think they could win? One asks. The other shrugs. Maybe they didn't need to. Maybe they just needed to be remembered. Velvet drapes billow gently in the Egyptian heat, perfumed with frankincense and betrayal. You lie on a couch, gold jewelry heavy on your limbs, though nothing weighs more than the Roman Empire breathing down your neck. You are Cleopatra VII Philopator, last queen of Egypt, and frankly, you've had better Wednesdays. The room glows amber from oil lamps. Outside, Alexandria teeters. Octavian, soon to become Caesar Augustus, is knocking at the door with an army and a bone to pick. You, however, are lounging like a woman who still holds the winning hand, or at least a snake. You knew the end was coming. After Mark Antony's defeat at the Battle of Actium, the cards were stacked. Antony believed you'd died, so he, being both tragic and theatrical, stabbed himself in the stomach. Classic miscommunication. You found him dying and had him carried to your tomb, where he bled all over your imported rugs and expired dramatically in your arms. Historians still argue whether Antony's end was an act of devotion or just some really poor decision-making under pressure. Now, you're next. You order a basket of figs. Normal enough, except hiding inside is the world's most infamous +1, the ASP. Maybe. See, here's where it gets squishy. Mainstream history says you let a venomous snake bite your breast or arm. Fringe theories. Some say it was poison pins. Others? A poisoned comb or ointment. One particularly spicy theory suggests Octavian staged the whole thing. Even the snake, it seems, might have been a scapegoat. Whatever the method, you arrange yourself to be found with dignity. Dressed in royal robes, you lie back among your treasures, not like someone fleeing death, but like someone welcoming it with perfect eyeliner. That's commitment. You think of Caesar, long dead, with whom you had a child. You think of your children with Antony, soon to be taken to Rome and paraded in chains. Your dynasty, which stretched back to the Ptolemies and even Alexander the Great, ends with you. You are Egypt's final monarch, a living goddess, now preparing to enter the myth. And the truth is, Cleopatra had a genius political mind. Fluent in several languages, including Egyptian, a rarity among the Greek-speaking Ptolemies, she ruled during a time of constant upheaval. But pop culture mostly remembers her for eyeliner, lovers, and an overly dramatic pet snake. You close your eyes. The poison, however it's delivered, numbs the edges of your body. Your breathing slows, the golden haze in the room blurs, and the palace fades into a soft, velvet silence. In the corner, your loyal handmaidens Iras and Charmian collapse beside you, having chosen to follow you into death. Drama queens, the lot of you. And here's your quirky tidbit, Cleopatra had her own cosmetics factory and likely invented her signature lipstick by crushing beetles. You die looking fabulous and slightly buggy. That's legacy. The Romans find your body, too late to use you for a triumphant parade. Octavian is reportedly both impressed and annoyed, you robbed him of his final theatrical flourish. Instead of dragging you through Rome in chains, he's left with a tomb and 1,000 poems. Later artists romanticize you to oblivion. Shakespeare gives you lines like, "Give me my robe, put on my crown, I have immortal longings in me." Even Hollywood, centuries later, tries to dress you up in winged eyeliner and awkwardly white casting decisions. But you never speak again. History puts words in your mouth, love stories on your lips, and an ASP in your arms. But maybe that's the trade-off, your death ends an empire, and in doing so, starts a legend. The marble statues, the oil paintings, the plays, the scandalous bedtime stories, all etched from this final moment. You slip away beneath silk and perfume, becoming eternal. The torches hiss in the wind as the feast begins. You sit beneath banners stitched with impaled bodies and fanged eagles, sipping thick red wine that may or may not be symbolic. You are Vlad III of Wallachia, better known as Vlad the Impaler. And tonight, death is on the guest list, you just haven't realized your seat's on the menu. Around you, nobles laugh nervously. They've all been invited by you, their ruler, for a lovely evening of meat and manipulation. You smile, polite but glinting. It's the kind of smile that makes people wonder if their wine was poisoned or just a little too spicy. The hall is warm, thick with roasted boar, firelight, and anxiety. There's music, too, lutes and voices, though no one dares sing too loudly. The servants move like ghosts, trained to disappear. Everything about this evening is calculated. Because this, friend, is your last meal, and you're serving fear as the appetizer. Vlad III has made a name for himself through ruthless defense of his homeland against the Ottomans. His impalement technique, yes, it's exactly what it sounds like, was not just sadism but strategy. The forests of corpses left on stakes were, in a way, psychological warfare avant la lettre. In 1462, when Sultan Mehmed II approached Vlad's territory and found miles of impaled bodies, he reportedly turned back. Who needs a battlefield when your trees have bodies? Tonight, however, something feels off. These guests, these boyars, have betrayed you before. They undermined your rule, backed rival claimants, and frankly, gossiped too much. But something worse stirs tonight. You're not as in control as you think. A small group, maybe Hungarian agents, maybe local turncoats, have other plans. According to some accounts, you're ambushed in the middle of the night, dragged from your own chamber like yesterday's leftovers. Historians still argue whether you were betrayed by your own nobles or captured in battle. Either way, it ends badly. Some say you're imprisoned for years by King Matthias Corvinus of Hungary. Others claim you escape, briefly reclaim your throne, and then, finally, die in battle in 1476. Not gloriously. Not grandly. Just, dead. Your head, they say, ends up sent to the Ottomans in Constantinople, pickled and paraded like a ghastly trophy. And here's your historical oddity: Vlad's castle, Poenary Fortress, is reachable today only by climbing nearly 1,500 steps up a mountain. You'd think the impaler would have added an escalator. But there's a deeper twist. Your legend doesn't end with your head on a pike. Centuries later, Bram Stoker finds vague inspiration in your name, and Dracula is born. Not the real you, but a shadow version, fanged, undead, and surprisingly charismatic for someone who sleeps in a box. So now, your historical death is overshadowed by an immortal life. You've become a Halloween costume, a Netflix plotline, a Halloween candy brand. Your real achievements, resisting Ottoman invasions, brutal justice reform, and terrifying crime control, get buried under the weight of fictional capes and wooden stakes. And yet, the real Vlad was scary enough without the fiction. You were cunning, multilingual, and utterly ruthless. You fought not just enemies but the slow rot of betrayal from within your own court. Your death, in the end, wasn't dramatic enough for the tales. It came quietly, without your usual flourish. Just a whisper in the snow, a head in a basket. But tonight, at your final banquet, as the shadows grow longer and the goblets run dry, you lean back in your chair. You raise a toast to loyalty, and wait to see who flinches. The sun hammers down on the cobblestones like it's personally offended. Your feet hurt. Your lungs burn. But still, you dance. You've been dancing for hours. Maybe days. Around you, dozens, no, hundreds, are spinning, leaping, twisting to a rhythm no one else can hear. Welcome to Strasbourg, 1518. You are smack in the middle of one of history's weirdest death spirals, the dancing plague. You didn't mean for this to happen. It started simple. One woman, Frau Trofia, stepped into the street and just started dancing. No music, no festival, no cue. People stopped and stared, maybe laughed. But then she didn't stop. Not after 1 hour. Not after 6. Not after a full night. You saw her. And something in you stirred. It looked freeing. Joyful. Maybe a little contagious. So you joined her. A few others followed. By the end of the week, it wasn't just 1 or 2 dancers, it was dozens. Then hundreds. Now it's been nearly a month. You're still moving. And here's where it gets spooky, no one knows why. Historians still argue whether this was mass hysteria, ergot poisoning from moldy rye, or some kind of psychosomatic outbreak tied to stress, famine, and religious fear. The Renaissance was a weird time, okay? You try to stop, but your legs won't obey. You dance in agony, your muscles screaming, your feet bleeding through worn shoes. People collapse mid-twirl. Some die of heart attacks, strokes, or sheer exhaustion. No one wants to talk about the smell. Authorities, God bless medieval bureaucracy, panic. Do they quarantine the dancers? Nah. They build a stage and hire musicians. Because obviously the problem is not enough structure. Great job, guys. You find yourself being pulled onto a wooden platform by robed priests and sweating minstrels, forced to flail while a lute player who's way too into it plucks away like you're the warm-up act to the apocalypse. Your face is crusted in sweat. You beg for water, but all they hand you is encouragement and possibly another tambourine. And the weird part? You're not alone in this suffering. Town officials recorded that people literally begged for it to stop, but it didn't. For weeks, the plague swept through the city, sparing no one, regardless of age, class, or gender. The cause? Still up for debate. Some believe it was a form of choreomania, mass psychogenic illness, brought on by extreme stress. Others blame that aforementioned ergot fungus, which produces LSD-like effects when consumed. That would explain the hallucinations, the twitching, the unexplainable coordination for someone who's been awake for 3 days straight. Here's your quirky tidbit. Local lore said Saint Vitus, patron saint of dancing and epilepsy, had cursed the town. So naturally, the solution was to hold more dances in front of his statue. Because logic. As you continue to convulse under the sweltering sky, your mind begins to drift. Maybe it's not a curse. Maybe it's not madness. Maybe you've slipped into some divine realm, where movement is meaning and your heartbeat is a drum that can't be silenced. Then your legs buckle. You crash onto the cobblestones. Someone tries to pull you up. You slap them away, or maybe just flail uselessly. Your vision dims. Someone nearby collapses too. You hear the lute snap. You think you see Saint Vitus dancing along the rooftops, arms akimbo, hips dislocating gracefully. Your last thought is a simple, blinding plea, please, let it stop. And then, it does. Eventually, the fever fades. The city grows still. But not before dozens, some say hundreds, lie dead from pure exhaustion. And not one song was played on purpose. Modern scholars treat this as a footnote in bizarre epidemiology, but you were part of it. A dancer in a tragedy without a beat. Somewhere in the alleys of Strasbourg, the stones still remember your footfalls. The night air is thick with smoke and the tang of spilled wine. You sit cross-legged on a velvet cushion, heart pounding beneath layers of embroidered silk. Your name is Humayun, second emperor of the Mughal Empire, and tonight, fate has a cruel sense of humor. You've survived betrayal, exile, and war, but it's a staircase that gets you. You lean forward, brushing a scroll across your lap. Astronomy, mostly. You've developed a late-life obsession with the stars, and you just received word of a new manuscript arriving in your private library atop the observatory tower. Naturally, you want to see it right away. What's the point of ruling an empire if you can't indulge in the occasional midnight science binge? Outside, the wind sighs against the sandstone walls of Delhi. Inside, candles flicker across latticed shadows. You rise, straighten your robes, and step carefully toward the stairwell. That's when it happens, your foot catches the edge of the flowing fabric. One misstep. One slip. Gravity's betrayal is silent but swift. Your body tumbles down the narrow, steep staircase. Historians still argue whether it was truly an accident, or if something more sinister happened in the dark. But what is certain is this: you fall hard, shattering your skull. By the time they reach you, your breathing is shallow, your mind slipping away. You're not just some minor king, after all. You're the son of Babur, the fierce founder of the Mughal Empire. You once ruled over vast territory stretching across India and beyond. Sure, you lost it all once, exiled by your own nobles, but you clawed your way back. You made alliances, fought battles, endured humiliation. You even marched through the desert with scorpions in your boots and sunstroke in your brain. You were a walking mess, and still you returned. Restored your throne. Rebuilt your legacy. And now? A fall on the stairs. Here's your quirky tidbit: before your death, you actually made a point of saying your son, Akbar, should be protected and tutored by wise men, especially by Ram Khan, your trusted general. Thanks to that, Akbar would go on to become one of the greatest rulers in Indian history. So, in a roundabout way, your clumsy death set the stage for a golden age. Way to stumble into progress. But for now, you lie broken, bleeding into stone. The sky above seems indifferent. The stars you so dearly loved blink coldly, too far away to help. Your advisors rush to your side, calling your name, but your eyes are fixed on the heavens. You try to speak, maybe a prayer, maybe a joke, but all that comes out is a gasp. Still, there's some poetry in it. You always did have your head in the stars. Dying on the way to read the stars. It's almost on brand. As the news spreads through the palace, people weep. Or pretend to. Some rush to pledge loyalty to your son, others quietly adjust their ambitions. Empires don't stop just because the emperor slips on his robe and takes a fatal tumble. And yet, for all your stumbles in life, this one is final. Your tomb, later built in Delhi, becomes a wonder of Mughal architecture. A precursor to the Taj Mahal. People visit, take pictures, light incense. Few of them remember the staircase. And maybe that's for the best. After all, you rebuilt an empire. Died for a book. And left behind a legacy that shaped an entire subcontinent. But still, a staircase. Really? Your hands grip the reins with practiced calm as the storm clouds gather over Quatre Bras. It's 1815, and you're Michel Ney, Marshal of France, sometimes called the bravest of the brave. You've charged through musket fire, stared down cannonballs, and led men through battles where even the smoke screamed. But now, as Waterloo looms, you're about to ride into the most infamous death spiral in military history. The mud squelches under hoofbeats. Rain pelts your red uniform, though it's more faded than you'd like to admit. You scan the field with eyes seasoned by decades of war. There's no room for mistakes here. The British are dug in, and Napoleon is watching. Always watching. No pressure, right? You kick your horse forward. The cavalry surges behind you, sabers raised, boots thudding like war drums. You're leading one of the largest cavalry charges ever attempted, against infantry backed by artillery and strong terrain. You don't flinch. Because Ney never flinches. Here's the thing, this isn't the first time you've done something suicidal and made it look poetic. Back in Russia, during the retreat from Moscow, you were the rear guard, literally the last man out. You fought while frostbite chewed off fingers and horses collapsed mid-step. You survived that. You survived everything. Until now. The charge falters. The British form squares, bayonets bristling like hedgehogs in bad moods. Your cavalry crashes against them, again and again, but can't break through. It's like trying to punch a wall of iron and tweed. You scream orders. Your sword is raised. Then your sword is gone. Shot clean from your hand. You grab a saber off a fallen soldier. Keep charging. Historians still argue whether the charge was Napoleon's command or your own initiative. Were you trying to break the British center, or buying time in a losing war? Doesn't matter much now. Your name's going down in history no matter who gave the order. By the end of the day, you've had 5 horses shot out from under you. Your boots are soaked with blood, not all of it yours. You've rallied broken regiments, led doomed attacks, and fought like a man who thought victory could be bullied into happening. It couldn't. The French lose. Waterloo is a name no French soldier ever wants to say again. Napoleon is defeated, exiled again, this time for good. You stay behind. A few months later, you're arrested. The Bourbon monarchy is back, and they're not fans of people who helped Napoleon reclaim the throne during the 100 Days. Never mind your decades of loyal service. Never mind your nobility, your courage, your sheer unkillability in battle. You're branded a traitor. They try you quickly, like someone trying to sweep history under the rug before it gets any ideas. You're sentenced to death by firing squad. Here's your quirky bit: on the day of your execution, you refuse the blindfold. Of course you do. You stare your own death in the face like it owes you money. And just before the shots ring out, you shout, "Soldiers, when I give the order, fire straight at my heart. Wait for the command. It will be my last to you." Then, in classic Ney fashion, you cry, "Vive la France!" Bang! They bury you in Père Lachaise cemetery in Paris. Tourists wander past your tomb today, often without knowing that beneath the stone lies a man who once led thousands into a storm of bullets and mud, survived it, and then chose to die like a commander, not a victim. Even now, scholars debate whether Ney was betrayed by politics or simply collateral in the royal restoration. Maybe both. But there's no debate about this: you lived like a legend and died like you trained for it. With your chin up, your heart open, and one last order on your lips. The heat clings to your skin like wet silk. You press your back against the warm stone of the temple wall, eyes fixed on the jungle beyond. Somewhere out there, the Spanish are coming. Or maybe they're already here. Your name is Moctezuma II, Emperor of the Aztecs, and you are about to die, confused, humiliated, and possibly at the hands of your own people. The year is 1520. You've ruled Tenochtitlan for nearly 2 decades. A city of floating gardens, turquoise-studded temples, and pyramids that cut the sky in half. You've overseen wars, rituals, and the expansion of an empire so intricate it makes European feudalism look like a board game with missing pieces. But today, you are a prisoner in your own palace. It started innocently enough. A few bearded men arrived on floating houses. They brought shiny trinkets, odd animals, and diseases you had no name for. Hernán Cortés and his merry band of conquistadors. You welcomed them, offered gifts. Perhaps you believed the rumors, that the pale strangers might be gods returning. Historians still argue whether you genuinely thought Cortés was Quetzalcoatl, or if that story was Spanish propaganda to justify what came next. Because what came next was disaster. The Spanish took you hostage, softly, at first. You were still emperor in title, but your orders carried as much weight as a leaf in a monsoon. Every day, more of your people grew restless. Tensions cracked the city like dry earth underfoot. You tried to balance diplomacy and tradition, but the air smelled like war. Then came the massacre at the Templo Mayor. While your people celebrated a sacred festival, the Spaniards struck. Blood spilled across sacred stones. Dancers became corpses. That's when the city snapped. The streets of Tenochtitlan roared with rage. The people turned on the Spaniards, and on you. They saw you as weak, a pawn, a puppet emperor whose hands stayed folded while their gods were desecrated. Cortés, feeling the pressure, sends you, Moctezuma himself, to the rooftop, hoping your voice might calm the mob. You step forward. Try to speak. The crowd seethes like a hive struck with a stick. Then something flies through the air. A stone. Crack. The impact staggers you. You crumble. You're carried back inside, bleeding from the head or chest, depending on who's telling the story. Some say you lingered for days, quietly fading. Others claim you were stabbed by the Spanish, silenced before you could turn on them. There's no consensus. Just a man, a wound, and a city on fire. Here's your quirky tidbit: among the treasure Cortés eventually looted was an obsidian mirror said to have magical properties. The Spanish, unfamiliar with its use in Aztec rituals, thought it was merely decoration. But for you, mirrors were portals to divine visions. Maybe you saw your fall in its surface before it happened. Your death marks the beginning of the end. The Aztec Empire collapses within a year. Tenochtitlan falls. Spanish flags rise where eagles once soared. Your name, once spoken with reverence, becomes a symbol of tragic indecision. And yet, what else could you have done? Face them in open war and risk annihilation before you understood the threat. Embrace them and hope diplomacy could delay disaster. Every path was lined with teeth. Today, your legacy is complicated. To some, you were too passive. To others, a wise leader caught in a no-win scenario. A ruler who tried to play chess with the gods and lost when the board caught fire. But one thing is clear, you stood atop a city that once dazzled the world. You held an empire in your palm. And though your death was messy, clouded by rumor and smoke, it shook the continent. Somewhere, deep beneath Mexico City's concrete skin, your temple stones still hum with your name. Not as a whisper of defeat, but a warning, even the sun can be eclipsed, if the gods decide to blink. The desert wind howls like a distant war cry as you guide your camel across the scorched Syrian sands. You are Khalid ibn al-Walid, the sword of Allah, undefeated in over 100 battles. Generals mutter your name like a curse, poets speak it like a prayer. You've shattered empires with clever ambushes and unexpected cavalry maneuvers. But now, oddly, no one wants you on the battlefield. You're in your 50s, maybe older. Still sharp. Still deadly. But the Caliph, Umar ibn al-Khattab, has dismissed you. No warning, no scandal, just a polite letter that says, essentially, thanks for winning us half the world. Please stop now. Historians still argue over why. Was Umar jealous of your fame? Concerned your victories overshadowed the state? Or just tired of sending you horses faster than they could breed? Whatever the reason, you obey. You've never craved power. Just purpose. So you retire to Homs, a city cradled between empires, where your sword gathers dust beside your mat. This, as it turns out, is where you die. But not in battle. Not with the clash of steel or the thunder of hooves. You die in bed. From illness. You, who once led 10,000 men into the heart of Byzantine lines like it was a Sunday stroll. You, who smashed the Persians at Walaja with a double envelopment maneuver so precise modern military academies still study it. You, who never lost a single engagement. Lying on rough linen, you stare at the ceiling. Your body, once a weapon, now fails you slowly. And you whisper something almost too soft to hear, I fought in 100 battles and never died. Now I die like a camel, in my bed. Yeah, that stings a little. Here's your quirky tidbit, according to some accounts, you kept your broken swords in a chest by your bed, each blade a reminder of battles that nearly killed you but didn't. Now, they're all silent. Cold. As useless as a raincoat in the desert. Outside, the call to prayer floats on the wind. Inside, your heartbeat fades. You might be the only general in this entire series to feel cheated by a natural death. No glorious martyrdom. No hero's end. Just a slow fade into memory. And yet, your legacy becomes legend. The man who outmaneuvered empires and struck fear into hearts from the Arabian Peninsula to the Levant. The one whose tactics were so bold they made battle-hardened Romans change their entire playbook. The Byzantines literally built entire defense systems just to slow you down. And usually failed. After your death, you're buried in Homs. A tomb grows up around you. Modest, not flashy. Today, pilgrims still visit. Some ask for courage. Others just want to be near greatness, as if a bit of your battlefield magic might rub off through the stone. And the irony? You're more revered now than ever. Statues, biographies, strategy essays. You became exactly what you never sought, a legend. Still, you'd probably trade it all for one more charge, one more swing of your sword in the middle of chaos. One last battle cry echoing over the desert hills. Instead, the room is quiet. No enemy in sight. Just the final victory no one can outrun. The year is 44 BCE, and Rome smells like sweat, ambition, and olives gone sour. You stride through the forum in a crimson-edged toga, head high, crown invisible. You are Gaius Julius Caesar, dictator, general, writer, and professional dream collector. You've crossed the Rubicon, beaten Pompey, rewritten calendars, and collected titles like other people collect sandals. But today you walk into history's most famous knife party. The Ides of March dawns crisp and clear. Birds chirp like nothing's wrong. A soothsayer warned you weeks ago to beware, but you laughed it off like someone ignoring a weird horoscope. You're Caesar. You don't do omens. You make destiny flinch. You enter the theater of Pompey, striding toward the temporary Senate chamber. It's not your usual location, but construction is ongoing. There are whispers in the air, nervous glances. You chalk it up to politics. You've just been declared dictator for life, after all. Not exactly a crowd pleaser with the traditionalists. And here they come, Brutus, Cassius, and a pile of liberators. Friends, senators, idealists. You recognize almost all of them. You've dined with them, gambled with them, probably passed them bad poetry at parties. Now they're closing in. First stabs in the shoulder. Then the ribs. You twist, shocked, arms flailing, not in fear, but in utter betrayal. It's not even the pain that gets you. It's the faces. Et2, brute. Historians still argue whether you actually said that line, or anything at all. Some say it's Shakespeare's flair, not yours. Others claim you simply pulled your toga over your face, preferring to die with dignity. Either way, your blood pools on the floor, staining the base of Pompey's statue. Ironic, since he was your rival. Here's your quirky tidbit: in the chaos, one of the assassins actually stabs another assassin by accident. It's a knife fight with no choreography. That statue of Pompey? Its foot was supposedly covered in your blood, a morbid splash of symbolism too good for even the worst political cartoonist to resist. You collapse with 23 stab wounds. Some superficial, but a few deadly. The last one punctures your heart, both literally and metaphorically. Your body lies on the stone floor, eyes open, expression unreadable. The assassins run, shouting about restoring the Republic, but Rome isn't buying it. Within days, mobs riot. Your will is read aloud: you left gardens to the people, money to the masses. Suddenly, the public isn't angry at you, they're furious on your behalf. So begins a civil war. Again. Octavian, your adopted heir, barely out of puberty, rises with cold precision. Mark Antony bellows fiery speeches and waves your bloodied toga like a holy relic. Brutus and Cassius. They'll die on dusty battlefields, ghosts chasing a ghost. You, though, you become more than a man. You become a myth. The month of July is named after you. Statues, coins, books, plays. Your crossing of the Rubicon becomes a phrase for every no going back decision ever made. Your death. It becomes the ultimate warning about ambition, betrayal, and bringing knives to a democracy. And the republic you supposedly threatened? It collapses anyway. Turns out, people like order more than principles. Your death didn't stop the empire. It created it. There's something poetic there. You tried to reform a corrupt system, got shanked by your peers, and still ended up ruling from the grave. You were the last breath of a republic, the first whisper of empire. They may have killed Julius Caesar, but they couldn't kill Caesarism. And somewhere, beneath the marble dust and faded frescoes, your ghost probably smirks. Because the Ides came. And you still won. The salty breeze slips under your tunic, chilling your skin as you stand on the wooden deck of your ship, surrounded by endless blue waves. It's the early 14th century, and you are Marco Polo, Venetian merchant, explorer, and probably the most famous traveler who ever didn't have GPS. You've just returned from 24 years wandering the Silk Road, courts of emperors, deserts of sand and ice, and cities so dazzling they look like the work of genies. Your journey isn't over yet, but already the stories spread, faster than any horse or caravan. You speak of Kublai Khan's palace, golden pagodas, and rivers so wide they swallow boats whole. The world has never heard such tales. At least, not from a Westerner. But your story isn't just about the sights. It's about survival, trust, and, oddly, a jail cell. Yes, that's right. Your epic travels, the riches you brought, and the cultural exchanges you fostered culminate in you sitting in a Genoese prison. Someone asks if you really saw all those things, and you say, write it down. Historians still argue whether the travels of Marco Polo is a first-hand account, a collection of second-hand stories, or a medieval mashup of adventure fantasy. But whether every detail is accurate or embroidered doesn't matter as much as the effect. The book ignited imaginations and inspired explorers for centuries. Here's your quirky tidbit: there's no mention of the Great Wall of China in your entire book. That's right, Marco Polo, who roamed the Mongol Empire, never talks about the wall. Some scholars suspect he never actually set foot in China. Others argue the wall back then wasn't the giant tourist magnet it is today. Anyway, back to your death. You live a comfortable life in Venice after prison. You marry, have kids, and tell your stories over wine and candlelight. When you finally pass away, in 1324, it's rumored you uttered a final wish: I have not told half of what I saw. That leaves us wondering. Did you hold back to keep some secrets safe? Were you modest about your own epic feats? Or was the truth simply too strange to believe? Whatever the answer, your death closes a chapter on an era where the world started to feel smaller, and at the same time, infinitely larger. You die quietly, far from the dust and danger of your travels, but your tales keep burning in minds across centuries. So next time you use Google Maps or catch a flight, think of Marco Polo, who crossed continents and cultures with nothing but a will to explore and maybe a little luck. The icy wind bites at your cheeks as you trudge through the vast Russian tundra, boots sinking into snow and ice. You are Ivan IV, better known as Ivan the Terrible, the first Tsar of all Russia, a ruler whose name alone can make even the coldest hearts shudder. You've expanded Russia's borders, centralized power, and built cathedrals that scrape the clouds. But your reign is marked by paranoia, violence, and personal tragedy that will echo through history. One winter night in 1581, your rage boils over. In a fit of fury, you strike your own son, Ivan Ivanovich, with your scepter. The blow cracks his skull. Your heir lies dying, his life slipping away faster than the snow melts in spring. Some say you never fully recover from this moment. The guilt consumes you more than the Siberian winters ever could. Your death is equally turbulent. In 1584, after decades of brutal rule, you fall ill, possibly from a stroke. But rumors swirl that your madness never left you. The man who built an empire with an iron fist dies alone, feared and hated by many. Here's a quirky detail: legend claims you once blinded the architect of St. Basil's Cathedral so he could never replicate its beauty elsewhere. Historians still debate whether that's true or just a story crafted to match your terrifying reputation. Your legacy is complex. You transformed Russia from a fractured collection of principalities into a centralized state poised to become a world power. But you also left behind a trail of violence, fear, and broken families. As your body cools in the cold palace chambers, your empire shivers with uncertainty. The time of troubles follows, a chaotic period marked by famine, rebellion, and foreign invasion. But despite the darkness, the foundations you laid endure. Russia rises again, stronger and more vast, shaped by the fierce spirit you embodied, flawed, brutal, but undeniably monumental. So as you close your eyes for the final time, know that your reign will be remembered not just for terror, but for transformation. The chapel is quiet, almost reverent, as you kneel in the flickering candlelight. You are Joan of Arc, the Maid of Orleans, barefoot, young, and fierce. You've heard the voices since childhood, Saint Michael, Saint Catherine, and Saint Margaret, calling you to save France from English hands. You've led armies, inspired kings, and turned the tide of the 100 Years' War. But today, your fate is sealed not by swords, but by flames. Captured by Burgundian forces and handed over to the English, your trial is a mockery disguised as justice. They call you a heretic, a witch, a madwoman. You stand firm, answering their questions with unwavering faith and a voice that shakes even your captors. Historians still argue whether your trial was politically motivated, a power play disguised as religious condemnation, or genuinely rooted in the medieval fear of female power. Your quirky tidbit: during your imprisonment, you reportedly sneaked out of your cell in men's clothing, your armor, twice. Once to inspire your fellow prisoners, and another time, perhaps, to test your captors. You were a rebel to the very end. The execution day arrives. The crowd gathers, expecting a spectacle. You are led to the stake, tied, and the wood is stacked around you. The flames roar to life, smoke curling skyward like prayers or curses. You shout, "Jesus," one last time. The fire consumes your body, but your spirit ignites something far larger. Your death is meant to extinguish hope. Instead, it fans the flames of legend. Within decades, the Church exonerates you, and you are canonized as a saint centuries later. Your story becomes a beacon of courage, faith, and the relentless fight against injustice. As you watch the flames flicker in that final moment, know this: you transformed from a condemned girl to an immortal symbol of resistance. Your death was tragic, brutal, and unfair, but your legacy, eternal. You stand in the cool, dim chamber beneath the temple, your breath steady but heart pounding. You are Tutankhamun, the boy king of Egypt, barely a teenager when you ascended the throne after the religious chaos unleashed by your father, Akhenaten. Your reign is short and enigmatic, marked by a return to the old gods and the fading glow of the new kingdom's golden age. But your death? That's a mystery wrapped in linen and sealed behind massive stone doors. You die around age 19, in the 14th century BCE, but exactly how? Scholars still argue: was it an accident? A blow to the head? Malaria? Genetic disease from generations of royal inbreeding? Or something more sinister? The lack of clear evidence has made your tomb a Pandora's box of speculation. Here's a quirky tidbit: your tomb, discovered by Howard Carter in 1922, was famously small but stuffed with treasures, gold masks, chariots, jewelry. But the curse rumors? Mostly media hype. Still, some of your tomb's discoverers met strange ends, fueling superstition and ghost stories that won't quit. Your death leaves Egypt vulnerable to internal strife and external threats. Your young widow, Enkhesenamun, reportedly sought a foreign prince to secure your dynasty's future, a rare diplomatic plea hinting at desperation. You're buried in a lavish tomb, designed to safeguard your journey to the afterlife. But the tomb itself becomes a tomb of stories, a place where the line between history and myth blurs. For centuries, you were just a name, a boy king overshadowed by giants like Ramses and Cleopatra. Then your golden mask emerged from the darkness, a radiant smile frozen in time. Now you're a symbol of ancient mystery, youth cut short, and the enduring allure of Egypt's secrets. And so, you rest beneath the desert sands, forever young, forever enigmatic, your death an unsolved riddle echoing through millennia. You're on the battlefield again, but this time it's not about glory or conquest. It's a grim October day in 1813 near Leipzig, Germany, what historians call the Battle of the Nations. You are Napoleon Bonaparte, once the emperor who reshaped Europe with a flick of your hand and a dozen campaigns. You've escaped exile on Elba, rallied your old guard, and marched back to reclaim your throne. But this battle? It's different. The coalition armies, Russia, Prussia, Austria, Sweden, swarm you in numbers you can't outmaneuver. The thunder of cannon and clash of steel surround you like a storm with no shelter. You give orders, rally your men, but the tide is turning. Your famous tactics, once unstoppable, falter under sheer force. Historians still argue whether your defeat here was due to overwhelming numbers, flawed alliances, or just the exhaustion of endless war. Some say you were losing your grip on reality, others insist it was just bad luck. Your quirky tidbit: during the battle, you were nearly killed by friendly fire, one of your own cannons nearly blasted you to bits. Ironically, your biggest threat wasn't just the enemy but chaos among your ranks. After the crushing defeat, you retreat, forced to abdicate once more. Your empire crumbles faster than a sandcastle in a storm. Exiled to St. Helena, a remote island in the South Atlantic, you spend your final years far from the grand palaces and battlefields. Your health deteriorates, rumors swirl: poison, cancer, stomach ulcer. The exact cause of your death remains a subject of debate. But in your solitude, you write memoirs, still commanding respect and fear. You die in 1821, at 51, a man who changed the world and fell just short of immortality. Your death marks the end of an era, Napoleonic Europe, but your legend? It marches on, in history books, films, and the way we think about power and ambition. And here's the kicker: your final resting place is in Paris, beneath the majestic dome of Les Invalides. So, after all that exile and defeat, you're still king of the city, even in death. You're in a dimly lit room in 1945 Berlin, surrounded by the muffled sounds of bombs dropping and armies closing in. You are Adolf Hitler, the dictator who plunged the world into darkness, orchestrated unimaginable horrors, and brought a global conflict to a catastrophic peak. The Third Reich is collapsing, the Red Army is storming the city, and the grand delusions of empire are crumbling like burnt paper. As the bunker's walls tremble, you retreat into isolation with Eva Braun, your longtime companion. Outside, Berlin is a maelstrom, fires rage, gunshots echo, screams pierce the air. But inside, the atmosphere is eerily calm, tense as a coiled spring. You have rejected all offers of surrender or escape. The Reich is finished, you know it. Your final act is grimly personal. With a cyanide capsule and a pistol at your side, you end your life alongside Eva, choosing death over capture. Historians still argue about the exact sequence of events and the details of your suicide. Some eyewitness accounts conflict, some documents remain sealed or lost. But the consensus holds: the man responsible for so much death chose a private death, a final refusal to face justice. Here's a quirky tidbit: rumors of your escape persisted for decades, tales of secret hideouts in South America, shadowy clones, and conspiracy theories worthy of a spy thriller. None have ever been proven, though the myths endure. Your death marks the collapse of one of the darkest chapters in history. The world slowly begins to rebuild from ashes and horror, determined to remember and never repeat. Your body, hastily burned in a bunker garden, becomes a symbol of a regime that tried to erase entire peoples and failed. As you fade from history's stage, the lesson lingers: absolute power without conscience is a path to ruin. And so, your story ends, not with a grand legacy or admiration, but with a warning whispered through generations.